I feel like this is going to be a short one because I have very little to say about the fourth and final season of Umbrella Academy, except that it is a tremendous disappointment. And it's a disappointment for a couple of reasons. Like, I love the comic books, and the comic books are great. And then Netflix made it into a show, and it was genuinely great. They got the characters down, the actors were perfect for their parts. Seasons 1 and 2 were pretty fantastic adaptations. Season 3 went off the rails a little bit, but it was still watchable, and I had a good time because of all of these actors and the characters they were playing, and Steve Blackman did a pretty good job. And then there's this thing with season 4, man. Like, what? They were contracted to finish it, but Netflix didn't want to go on, so they said, hey, you know what? Here's some money. You can have 6 episodes. Just do what you want. Wrap it up so the fans don't get upset, and then we'll forget about it for all time. Is that what happened? Because this was just randomly mashed up, strung together, completely unsatisfying, just nothing like the Umbrella Academy I know and love.
As I was watching it, I found myself enjoying it enough, but that was mostly because I didn't care.
There was no more emotional investment.
I didn't read the comics. I really liked season 1. I kinda liked season 2. I got completely lost with season 3. And season 4 is just the long goodbye.
Do you think this is a Game of Thrones problem? Seasons 1, 2, and 3 had graphic novels to be based off. But season 4 doesn't have source material. And my biggest problem with this season is that the characters don't feel like themselves.
As I was watching it, I found myself, specifically with Luther's character, I found myself really wondering what happened to Luther. I remember him being a bit of an apple polisher. I remember him being lost after season 1 because the father had passed away and he had no real sort of father figure to manage. And then
because he was the favorite.
He was the favorite. He was the leader just because he was the favorite. But I don't remember him being a goofball. I don't remember him being a dummy dum-dum, which is what season 4 made him out to be. I was surprised that there was no residual issues with the relationship he had with Allison, I think it was. Yes, Allison. And just season 4, they just seemed like friends again and just seemed fine. And I just thought that was a bit eh.
Also, when you are doing a fourth and final season, shouldn't your primary objective be to wrap things up? Why are you introducing new plot points in season 4? What is the point of that? There are still hanging threads from seasons 1, 2, and 3, which are unresolved in season 4, just conveniently forgotten. So why are you still introducing new ideas in season 4, knowing that you're not going to be able to give us anything satisfying?
I think that was the mistake with season 4. I think it would have been better if season 4 wasn't just another end of the world apocalypse situation. If it was just them trying to go back to their original timeline, spoiler alert or whatever. If they had just focused it on that, I think I would have been happier. Nobody seems to care that they're not in their original timeline anymore. Nobody seems to give a shit that they're not where they're supposed to be.
And I think that's the problem, right? Especially when you're doing a time travel story with all of the paradoxes involved and the nitty-gritty that comes with time travel. Maybe you want to try and put a little more attention into making it make sense. And I'm not saying that everything about Umbrella Academy makes sense, because that was part of its charm. Some of it did, some of it didn't.
But it has to make sense within the rules of your own show.
Correct. Within that world, it should make sense.
Especially because you've had 3 seasons already to tell us what the rules are. For you to then just ignore it completely just seems a bit wild.
And I really feel bad for the actors, because you got back this talented group of actors, all of whom are fantastic, and you give them this to do. And I feel like that is such a colossal waste of time. Like, why bother, right? I mean, honestly, as a fan of the series, I would have been fine if they just canceled it with 3 instead of giving me this.
You know what it is? I feel like if Netflix just said, hey, here's some money, just do 2 feature lengths and you're done. By giving the creatives that kind of obvious sandbox to play in, I think they would have come up with a better story as opposed to this Jean and the Keepers and the Clans and a giant squid for some reason that's there, a trans-dimensional subway station with a cafe diner. It's just like, what? None of this was set up. Suddenly it comes in and then it was just as quickly ignored and moved on from.
And they didn't make it cool. That was my problem. Because Umbrella Academy always used to do these sorts of things, right? The idea of a Hotel Oblivion, very cool idea. But the source material, what Gerard Way and Gabriel Barr did, made it cool. It looked cool, it sounded cool, and the concepts were something that you could really get behind. Here, it felt like they just wanted to throw things at you that sounded cool, but didn't want to do the work to actually make it cool.
But again, it feels like they did too many things. There is a bit in, I think, episode 4, 5, and 6 about what happens to Five and Lila. I thought that was cool. I think it would have been cooler had they just left them be. Make a real sacrifice, and those guys are just fucking gone in the trans-dimensional subway station that you've brought up for no reason than this. And honestly, look, okay, I didn't care when you press record. When you press record, I was ambivalent to this show. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm suddenly invested. That whole subway train thing didn't move the story.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Not only does it not go anywhere, it doesn't move the story. It's not even Chekhov's gun. It's not even Chekhov's handkerchief. It does nothing there other than just to set up the fact that at some point Lila and Five are going to get lost in it. But like, why? Did it give them some clarity to stopping the cleanse? No. Was it a rabbit's foot of a thing that helped them find a solution to stopping? Nothing. It did fuck all. Crap. I just realized that.
I'll tell you what really worked as one of these sorts of things. The Joss Whedon show Firefly, right?
Sure.
Only had 12 or 13 episodes, I think. It was way back when science fiction just didn't last on television, right? You'd be lucky to get multiple seasons. But it had a huge fan following, and then Joss Whedon was allowed to make a film, Serenity, a feature, his first feature before he did Avengers. Serenity was, I thought, a fantastic piece of science fiction fantasy in that it built on the world that was created in Firefly. It gave you an incredible resolution to the characters that you loved in that TV show. Some people died, some people survived, other people moved on. You got to know where these characters were going because obviously the series ended very abruptly. Not everyone had a happy ending, but it didn't matter. Some of their futures were open-ended, but that was fine. Because as a viewer watching their stories, you kind of know or you have some hope in where they're heading. And so that felt like a proper resolution. And one of the big arcs that was set up in the TV series with regards to who is controlling everything was kind of resolved in the movie as well. That is how you do something that is satisfying, that resolves threads, that actually leaves fans happy. Sure, I buy the comic books and read them too because there's more to that world and more to those stories. But what they did with Umbrella Academy feels absolutely pointless. I have no idea why Netflix allowed this. It just feels like what they keep doing over and over again. They have something phenomenal like House of Cards or Orange is the New Black or Umbrella Academy, but somehow it loses steam and then they lose interest as well. And so what you end up with is this third rate, 6:30 kind of finale situation that doesn't do anything for you.
There were so many things that just seemed half-assed. Oh, they found a jar of marigold. Look at that. How lucky are we?
Yeah.
Also, I'm sorry. I know I was zoning in and out when I was watching this, but Lila's power, does she shoot lasers or is she a mimic? when did the mimic thing come up? Because suddenly she did this mimic thing and everybody was like, oh yeah, she's a mimic. Let me hold your hand. We can do it together.
But hey, they don't care about the rules of their own world. Why are you caring?
I no, but it's I wanted no, but like the like the Lila thing. I remember thinking to myself when it happened, I'm like, did I fall asleep? Because suddenly she's like, let me do it with you and we can blink together. 5. When was this mimic thing? Did I miss this?
Who cares?
Yeah, I don't think anybody cared. Look, I think my disappointment only comes from when I think about it. And honestly, at this point, the fact that season 4 went out with such a whimper, I don't want to think about it anymore.
Same.
I kind of enjoyed it when I was watching it. I thought it was fine.
No, I'll tell you what that is though.
Yeah.
That's because there is a certain amount of nostalgia because we enjoyed those previous seasons and we enjoyed these actors and these characters a lot. But then as soon as you spend any time thinking about it, you're like, well, this is actually not what I loved about seasons 1 and 2. And then there is a certain amount of charm as well with these actors and the characters that they're playing. We've fallen in love with the characters more so than the show. The characters are interesting. We spent so much time with the characters that we're invested in their lives. It's the same reason why some people watch 25 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, right? It's because they're just there. They've already spent that much of their life watching that show that they can't let go. And I think there's a certain part of that with this as well. I think there was a genuine affection for those early seasons because they were very, very good. And so when I'm watching it, I feel like I'm transported back there again. But as soon as I spent any amount of time thinking about it, I'm like, no, this is a pale shadow of that thing.
Anyway.
We think you should just skip it. Even if you're a completist, this feels like a waste of your time. Even though it's just 6 episodes and the bulk of them are only 45 minutes, it still feels like a waste of your time because it's that disappointing. Skip Umbrella Academy Season 4. Just be happy with what you got in Season 3 and go read the comics. There are 3 graphic novels. There are a whole bunch of spin-offs now. That's where the real action is. Go check that out. Don't waste your time with Umbrella Academy Season 4. It's now streaming on Netflix. Let us know what you thought if you happened to watch it. You can reach out on all of our social media feeds, Goggler MY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.